Good morning, everybody. Tim Handren here, your mayor, sitting with Captain Perez, who's our emergency management coordinator for the city of Boerne. I told you in the posting last night that I was going to give you an updated declaration this morning for what we're doing in the city of Boerne related to this COVID-19 outbreak. So I'm going to go ahead and read this to you and make a few comments along the way so that you know what I have already signed. Again, this is a second declaration of the local disaster for the public health emergency in Boerne, Texas. Whereas in December 2019, a novel coronavirus, now designated COVID-19, has been recognized globally as a contagious respiratory virus. And whereas on March 13th, 2020, Greg Abbott, the governor of the state of Texas, issued a proclamation that declared COVID-19 as an imminent threat of disaster. And whereas I, Tim Handren, mayor of the city of Boerne, Texas, issued a declaration of health emergency effective on March 17th, 2020, declaring that COVID-19 poses an imminent threat of public health disaster for the city of Boerne, Texas. And whereas COVID-19 continues to spread and to pose an increasing imminent threat of disaster throughout the city of Boerne, Kendall County, Texas, the United States, and the world. And whereas the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has advised that person-to-person and in contact heightens the risk of COVID-19 transmission. And whereas the President's coronavirus guidelines for America, as promulgated by President Donald J. Trump and the CDC on March 16, 2020, call upon Americans to slow the spread of COVID-19 by avoiding social gatherings in groups of more than 10, using drive-through, pickup, or delivery options in restaurants and bars, and avoiding visitation at nursing homes, among other steps. And whereas the Texas Department of State Health Services has now determined that as of March 19, 2020, COVID-19 represents a public health disaster with the meaning of Chapter 81 of the Texas Health and Safety Code. And whereas the city acknowledges and supports the decision and efforts made by Public Works and Utilities to not disconnect services to persons during the time of this emergency, and whereas pursuant to the Texas Disaster Act of 1975, the mayor of the city may declare a local state of disaster in and for the city and may exercise the powers granted therein on an appropriate local scale. Now therefore I, Tim Handren, the mayor of the city of Boerne, by virtue of the power and authority vested in me by the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas, do hereby order the following on a citywide basis effective 11:59 p.m. today, March 20th, 2020, and continuing until 11:59 p.m. on April 3rd, 2020, subject to the extension thereafter based on the status of COVID-19 in the city of Boerne and the recommendations of the CDC. Order number 1. In accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, every person in the city of Boerne shall avoid social gatherings in groups of more than 10 people. At all times and locations, everyone shall follow and adhere to the CDC distancing guidelines between individuals. That means at all times you need to have 6 feet between you and other people, especially if you're going to HEB and you're lining up, whether you're checking out or you're lining up to go in HEB, or you're at a grocery store, inside the grocery store, or you're at a convenience store. Order number 2, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, people shall avoid eating or drinking in bars, restaurants, and food courts, having garage sales, or visiting gyms or massage parlors, provided, however, that the use of a drive-through pickup or delivery option is allowed and highly encouraged throughout the limited duration of this executive order. I added garage sales because if you are infected with the virus and you like going to garage sales, you will go to a bunch in one morning and you will be called a super infector. And I don't want to have garage sales be the source of this thing spreading around. So I added garage sales as excluded. Order number 3, in accordance with the guidelines from the President and the CDC, people shall not visit nursing homes or retirement or long-term care facilities unless to provide critical assistance. Order number 5, my previous directive that the City of Boerne utility personnel suspend disconnection of utility services for non-payment during the term of my declaration shall remain for the duration of this order and any extension thereof. Order number 6, child care facilities shall strictly adhere to CDC guidelines found at cdc.gov for daycare facilities. Child care facilities are a touchy topic. Some people need to have their child go to a daycare facility because they have to go work and they don't have another option. As long as those daycare facilities are doing exactly what the CDC prescribes, we're okay with that. We know that children are going to be promulgators of the virus, and we know that daycares can be an easy place to pass along infection. Today, we're just asking that all daycare facilities abide by the CDC guidelines. Order number 7, penalties from Government Code Section 418.173 are invoked for violations of these provisions, which include $1 to $1,000 fines or up to 180 days in jail. Persons observing violations of these provisions shall report them to the city at 830-249-8645. That is a non-emergency phone number for police dispatch. And I have met with the police chief this morning, as well as with Captain Perez, and we talked through this. And we know that we're seeing on Facebook, people are seeing where they're seeing groups of people in public areas. And we want them to know that they can call the police, and we will enforce these provisions. This is really important stuff, folks, and we need to follow these guidelines, and we need to follow these orders in the city of Boerne. This declaration does not prohibit people from visiting a variety of places, including grocery stores, gas stations, parks, and banks, so long as the necessary precautions are maintained to reduce the transmission of COVID-19. That means abide by the 6-foot rule between people. This declaration does not mandate sheltering in place. All critical infrastructure will remain operational, domestic travel will remain unrestricted, and government entities and businesses will continue providing essential services. For offices and workplaces that remain open, employees should practice good hygiene and, where feasible, work from home in order to achieve optimum isolation from COVID-19. The more that people reduce their public contact, the sooner COVID-19 will be contained and the sooner this executive order will expire. This declaration supersedes all previous declarations and orders on this matter that are in conflict or inconsistent with the terms, and this declaration shall remain in effect and in full force until 11:59 on April 3rd, 2020, subject to being extended and modified, amended, rescinded, or superseded. I signed this morning after we went through a long discussion about adding these extra provisions. This is more than what the governor has asked us to do, but I think it's the right thing to do in our community. I want to be a model community where this doesn't spread. Interestingly, I got a text message this morning from Councilwoman Nina Woolard. She shared a story from a small city in Georgia. It's Albany, Georgia. It's a city, a little city of about 70,000 people. And the number of cases that they have there are huge. It's 40, and 8 people have died. And it all stemmed from a funeral, followed by another funeral at one funeral home, and everybody there had the potential to be in contact with an infected person. And it's spreading fast, and there's more being tested there. We have more folks being tested in Boerne. You know, the school district has put out two of their folks are going through the testing process. As of this morning, we don't have the results from that. When someone is tested, Steve, could you just say real quick exactly what happens when someone's tested?
They're usually going to reach out to their physician and start taking advice from there before they actually go into the clinic or the hospital. If they do need to be hospitalized, again, those provisions need to be taken before they get there so that everyone can stay safe. Generally, when someone's going to be tested, they're going to go through that. We may not know they're being tested unless somebody tells us they're being tested. However, once the test goes to the lab, that report will go to the Department of Health and Human Services. And at that point, if they do test positive, we will be notified, myself and also the County Emergency Management Coordinator, Jeff Fink, will be notified of a person who has been tested positive for COVID-19. I do want to tell everybody, because I've seen some stuff on Facebook, people want to know who it is, where they live, and things like that. That's the information we're not getting. And that's the information that we don't need to be putting out. We can just tell you we do have a confirmed case, and it's in Kendall County, which includes the city of Boerne. And that information, if we do have their, male or female, their gender, if we know their age, if we know if it was contracted either through traveling or through community spread, we'll put that out. If we don't put that out, that means we don't have that information. And so, again, those are just the facts that we're getting, and we're putting it out to everybody. So we're trying to be as transparent as we can within reason.
Thanks, Steve. So just a couple other updates that we talked about this morning. I talked with the Judge Lux last night, and we heard from Gary Menezes this morning. Both Fair Oaks and the county have adopted the exact same provisions that the governor put out yesterday. So Kendall County looks a lot alike. I just went a little bit further in our city limits because we have daycare facilities in our city limits, and I want to do what's right for you. For those that are watching this, Steve and I are 6 feet apart, just to be clear about that. We're following the guidelines. And thanks for tuning in. More updates will be coming as soon as we have additional information to share with you. Thanks.